Dark Souls 3 is the hardest Souls game known to man. Is what I would say if I didn't have the power of 10,000 Redditors flowing through me. You see, by scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of Reddit threads and snorting 15 pounds of coke, I have become the ultimate life form, a Souls elitist. I now understand the true point of Souls games. It's not about having fun or that beautiful feeling you get when you finally kill a boss. It's about dealing as much damage as possible with a giant wooden stick twice the size of you. It's about being so exposed to the natural elements of the world that the only thing between you and several charges of public indecency is a thin piece of tattered cloth protecting your ashen balls. And most importantly, it's about doing sacred tribal dances around your enemies in order to confuse them before granting them a swift death. This is Dark Souls 3. And today, I'll be completing the entire game by only leveling strength, while also using the hardest possible start. Now, I want to give a disclaimer before I start. I'm not good at this game, but I have something that many people don't have, which gives me a huge advantage.
I'm retarded?
With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and without further ado, let's begin. In order to beat the game in such a way, we'll need to create the ultimate life form. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Bingish Chen. You can think of Bingish Chen as a figure similar to the sin of greed. He wants everything, from the blood of his enemies to your grandmother's ashes. If Bingish Chen wants it, he'll get it. As we spawn in, the only thing we have is a wooden club, a wooden shield, and a lust for blood. Immediately, the first thing we do is begin assaulting the elderly. Once we fold him like a lawn chair, we pick up the ashen flask that he was guarding. This will allow us to refuel our focus needed to cast special abilities. After doing so, I stumble across a crack lizard that yearns to be mine for subsistence. He proceeds to give me several lethal crack overdoses, but in the end, he is no match for the mighty Bingish Chen. There, we pick up our first Titanite scale, an important in-game material for leveling up weapons. After beating on some more senile elderly people, we finally make it to our first bonfire. After doing so, this brings us to the first boss of the game, Eirix Gunther. The fight is initiated by removing a long, sharp object that seems to be penetrating this man. Now, normally most people would appreciate this, but Gunther is some freak who does not, and immediately he starts beating the absolute shit out of us. Eirix Gunther is not necessarily a difficult boss. His first phase is extremely straightforward and very slow, a pretty good learning curve for new Souls players. However, I'm wearing a loincloth as thin as paper and currently look like I showed up for a baseball game, so this fight gave me a bit of trouble. I spent some time whacking on him with my big wooden stick to get him in the second phase. In response, he decides to give birth to a giant living fetus that sits on me and smacks me harder than Will Smith at the Grammy Awards. But eventually we get the hang of his tactics, and in the end, he is no match for the mighty Bingish Chen, bearer of big sticks. Now that we've shown off our big stick policy, it's no surprise that we run into our first maiden, the Firekeeper. Much like Helen Keller, the Firekeeper is a blind woman capable of achieving many great feats. She's responsible for leveling up our stats, but the only stat we'll be leveling here is strength. So we dump all of our points into strength for a whopping 22 strength at the start of the game. Now you might be wondering, Frostburns, how good is 22 strength this early on? Imagine you take 15 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, 2 Viagra, wash it down with a nice glass of Diet Dr. Pepper, and start beating on the local residents of Detroit. That's how good it is. So after arriving to the first real zone, Highwall Lothric, that's exactly what we do. There are several other crackheads who try to get in our way, but by adopting a shoot first, ask questions later motto, I don't have to determine which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones. I simply beat them with my wooden stick, cover myself in the blood of my enemies, rinse and repeat. After some time, we pick up a cell key in the bottom of some rancid, dank smelling basement, and this gives us easy access to the first non-tutorial boss of the game. We beat up some guards in the front doorway before entering the Grand Room. As we do, a giant fog portal soon takes form at the end of the room, and Nicky Avocado in a suit of metal armor crawls his way out the portal. As I almost had 7,000 souls on me and no health potion, I said fuck that, I'm out of here.
Cause you're a pussy.
And return home to level up at the shrine. After upgrading our club and leveling up, I returned back to Mr. Avocado. This time, much more prepared. Despite running at me full speed like an abnormal titan, we were able to administer several painstaking backshots that absolutely demolished his health. And just like that, Bort of Boral Bally has been defeated. At this point in the game, you're supposed to talk to an old hag that gives you a banner to move on to the next zone of the game. However, as I was talking to her, I swear the bitch looked at me funny. So of course, I proceeded to beat the crap out of her with my wooden bat. As I did, the doors closed behind me and a dark knighted figure drops down from the ceiling. At this point, I'm pretty confident in my wooden club mastery. So I try to beat the crap out of him like I did the old hag, but literally every ability he does to me is a one-shot, and I do virtually no damage to him. After having my ass absolutely eaten by this guy for about 50 deaths, I realized that he's the 12th boss of the game. So yeah, I decided we'll come back to him later. So I used the banner and took the Fortnite battle bus to the Undead Settlement. In this area, we want to fight the boss Curse Rotted Greatsword Tree in order to gain the ability to create boss weapons. However, instead of capturing the gameplay, for some reason my computer was capturing my Windows screensaver, which seemed to resemble feudal China. So enjoy China Eggman singing while my game audio is in the back of me killing the boss. I hope you guys enjoyed that nice relaxing break. Now, let's get back to our regularly scheduled massacring. After conquering the Curse Rotted Tree of Mao Zedong, it was time to unlock those boss weapons that I mentioned earlier. Right now, we'll be grabbing Bort's Great Hammer by using the soul of the fatty we killed earlier. This is a pretty good strength only weapon that you can get pretty early on that even causes frost damage. After changing from a wooden bonker to a steel bonker, I thought I was finally ready to face the Dancer of Boral Valley. Okay, never mind. Apparently I still can't kill this boss 40 levels higher than me. After being humiliated by Dancer yet again, I decided to level up more by making my way to the Road of Sacrifices, otherwise known as Louisiana. It's full of swamp monsters, all-you-can-eat crab legs, and of course, its native residents, hillbillies. Here, I mollywopped a random NPC with Bort's Great Hammer to gain the most powerful strength weapon in the game, the Wooden Great Club. Now, normally I don't agree with using the best weapon in the game for a playthrough like this. I think it's kinda cheesy, so I really won't be doing much of that. But this did give me a good idea. Okay, never mind. After the Dancer made me his bitch yet again, I felt the need to blow off some steam. So I decided to take on the Crystal Sage. The Crystal Sage was a mage that gave me rage. So after playing whack-a-mole for a few, I beat the bitch blue until there were two, and before I could blink, the battle was through. After tying up loose ends in the Road of Sacrifices, we entered Farron Keep, where we came in contact with the First Lord of Cinder, the Abyss Watcher. Fighting the Abyss Watcher is kinda like walking through the streets of downtown Los Angeles at 3 in the morning. He starts off the fight by randomly attacking you for no reason, splits himself into multiple personalities, and then proceeds to get in a fight with said personalities and begins fighting with them instead of you. If that's not enough, when he enters phase 2, he heals back to full health, forgets about his split personalities, locks the fuck in, and decides to go absolutely apeshit on you. Now I told myself I'd only use the giant club a few times, but you try fending off a schizophrenic homeless man with a flaming sword in your underwear without a big wooden bat, and you tell me how that goes. After being beaten, slow roasted, and backhanded, I finally put an end to the First Lord of Cinder. After returning home to the shrine and turning my new souls from the fallen boss into strength points, I truly felt like I could finally kill the 12th boss of the game on the 5th boss. Now keep in mind, there's really no real benefit of me doing this. Yeah, I gained some souls, but at this point, I'm just kinda pissed off that the dude kept fucking killing me, so let's do this shit. It took me a couple attempts, but holy shit, dude, we finally did it. Strength only Dancer of Boral Valley at level 41. This might not be the craziest thing for you guys, but I spent 3 days on this boss. So this was everything to me. And yeah, all that death and killing was just for 6 levels, guys. But you know what? I was happy, so screw it. After reclaiming my dignity back from the Dancer, it was time to say goodbye to the Great Club. It served us well, but this is a strength only playthrough and there are tons of awesome strength weapons to try. So I went to Fair and Keep to pick up our next weapon, the Greatsword. Now that we had our Greatsword, it was time to launch a full crusade against the Mormon Church in the Cathedral of the Deep. After spreading the good word of the Lord throughout the church, we picked up Lloyd's Sword Ring. A ring that grants a 10% damage buff as long as you're full health. Since everything was basically one-shotting us anyways, this is an essential item to have in our build. With the ring in our possession, it was time to make our way to the Deacons of the Deep. Now let me tell you guys how to min-max having fun in this fight. Step 1. Get a long-range swinging weapon like the Greatsword. Step 2. Let all the meth heads clump up together in a circle. Step 3. Swing as hard as you can and watch them all fall over like dominoes. Yes, it is as fun as it looks, but results may vary. I recommend hitting the fat ones first for maximum carnage. After using my gut sword to spam Whirlwind, I finally managed to kill the Pope. At this point, I return home to level up strength to level 58. Keep in mind the soft cap was at level 27 for two-handed weapons, making upgrades after exponentially minuscule. At strength level 66, the hard cap for strength level comes in, and you get absolutely no damage increase after that. But as I am the living reincarnation of the definition of insanity, we'll be doing it anyways. Before leaving, I decided to pick up the absolute most essential ring for this playthrough, which reduces all the damage taken by 20% when at full health, aka this stops me from being one-shot. I'll have you know, I felt pretty stupid when I realized I could have picked up this ring before being one-shot by Dancer for 3 days. Jumping back into things, we head to the Catacombs of Carthus where we face off against several undead monsters and several bony balls. After dealing with said balls, we break a bridge to trap a skeleton army chasing me, and eventually I end up hallucinating on LSD, where I'm transported to High Lord Wolnir. Wolnir is my sleep paralysis demon, but after breaking out his ice gold change, I sang a special chant to send him back home to the depths of my mind.
Nightmare, 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 nightmare.
Once the LSD demon was taken care of, we went to the smoldering lake and ran into one of my favorite enemies, which I really would have loved to see in Elden Ring, but we didn't get it. The Mimic Chest. If you make the mistake of opening these chests, the monsters in them will eat you whole, making you paranoid to open any further chest in the game. But a fire giant seemed to aggro it by spitting flames at it, and I used that opportunity to not only loot the chest, but to kill the giant. But we didn't come here for the chest. We came here for an awesome strength greatsword named Fume's Ultra Greatsword. Now, I don't want to tell you guys how many times I had to get emoted on to obtain this greatsword, but after Night Slayer Torsig finally finished having his way with me, we were able to land a killing blow on him and gain the most fucking awesome greatsword I have ever wielded. The next 3 bosses are pretty gimmicky, so I'm gonna speed things up here so we don't have to sit through them. Try to stay with me. First, we go to the breathtaking Boral Valley to fight Pontiff. Pontiff Sullivan, in my opinion, is the most difficult boss I have ever faced in Souls history, is what I said before I learned how to parry. After parrying his thrust attack, we killed this magic gooner in about 6 hits, so this fight only lasted as long as sex, about 30 seconds. And of course, I dump all my points in the strength. We then arrive to Anar Londo, where we face off against the second soul of Cinder, Aldrich the Devourer of Gods. But Aldrich is no match for my big fat sword thrusting into her. After killing her, of course, I dump more points in the strength. Now that Bingus Jin has a Super Saiyan God level of strength, I head off to face the third Lord of Cinder, Yorm the Giant Boss. But his name is more like Yorm the Gimmick Boss, because after you pick up the sword in his room, he can be killed in about 4 or 5 special attacks from the Storm Ruler. What do I do with the rest of my points, you might ask? Well, of course, I dump them in the strength. You stupid dog! Okay, I hope you guys got all that info. Having 80 strength and no health is really starting to catch up to me. I then go to the blacksmith to pick up what I deem to be the most powerful strength weapon in Dark Souls 3, Yorm's Great Machete, a weapon that not only scales with strength, but deals massive damage on its own. After doing that, we picked up another essential ring, the Ring of Favor, from a disgusting looking dog thing to finally complete our ring build. After putting down an old dog, I used the path of the Dragon Jester to go to Archdragon's Peak. A giant dragon shows up and starts nay-naying on me pretty hard, but by timing a plunge right, you can actually one-shot this guy way earlier than you're supposed to. With all the fire-breathing dogs out the way, it's time to start gripping your pearls, because now we'll be facing the hardest boss in Dark Souls 3, the Nameless King. This boss is completely optional and for a damn good reason, since less than 40% of players have even killed him. To start off the fight, you already suffer minus 100 aura damage, as he drops down from the sky and aura farms you on his giant wyvern. If that isn't enough, half this guy's attacks are one-shots as well. Thankfully, phase 1 is a pretty slow part of the battle, so Bingus was able to hit phase 2 pretty easily. However, phase 2 of Nameless King is a reminder that you are nothing but a child sucking on the nipple of life. Because not only is he fast, but his attacks hit like an absolute fucking truck. And it is no surprise that literally any attack in this phase one-shots me. After dying over 50 times to this boss, I decided there was no way I could win this fight without armor. So I geared Sir Chin up with some Undead Legion armor, and holy crap, it was a game changer. I went from being one shot by every attack to now being able to take an entire 2 hits before dying. This may seem sarcastic, but this was absolutely huge, as I was one hit through most of this playthrough. After getting some big hits in on King, I finally staggered him enough for some huge damage. After this, I knew the fight was over and the hardest boss of the game was now conquered. After the Nameless King was vanquished, it was time to fight Lothric and Lorien, the twin princes. At this point, I felt like a literal god. I had Yorm's Great Machete fully maxed out with over 90 strength at this point. I decided it was best to do this fight as a naked dragon. Why, you might ask? Well, because I figured the only thing more embarrassing than being killed by Bingus Chin was being killed by this disgusting looking shriveled flesh beast. Lothric's first phase was pretty straightforward. In this phase, he seems to be cosplaying as a paraplegic wielding a fire sword. Now, I say cosplaying because occasionally he'll do an attack where he forgets he's disabled and decides to stand up. After abusing his so-called disability, we easily get him to phase 2. But this is where things get freaky. His brother starts gently caressing him and carelessly whispering into his ear, and they spend the entire fight fighting as one. If you kill the disabled prince, the other will simply just revive him. However, this doesn't change much. I'm now just fighting one big crippled instead of 2 separate ones, so I have no problem putting their whole freaky stepbro act to an end. At this point in the game, I return to the shrine where I max out the cap of strength at 99, and I am transported to the last boss of the game, the Soul of Cinder. The Soul of Cinder has the coolest moveset in all of Dark Souls 3, and if you're not careful, he will easily aura farm you even harder than Nameless King while doing maximum damage. In phase 1, he can cast several magic attacks that can one-shot you, while phase 2, he regenerates back to full health and gets extremely more aggressive. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. This fight is incredibly easy for strength builds, because although damage increase for strength stops around strength level 60, fire damage resistance scales with strength up to level 99. So by giving Bingus Chin the ultimate ceremonial fighting dress, we get our flame absorption to over 40%, making most of his attacks just under half as effective. After dodging several magical attacks in absolute style, we were able to finally put an end to the final boss of the game. Now, to complete Dark Souls 3, there are 2 endings with 2 different achievements. The first is to link the flame, the technical good ending, and the second is to end the flame, the quote-unquote bad ending. But there is a third option that many haven't heard of. By summoning the Fire Queefer and bonking her on the head as the camera fades to black, you can achieve the ultimate ending, where you put your foot on the Fire Queefer's head and steal the flame for yourself. However, Bingus was wearing his ceremonial fighting dress, and it just looked like he was flashing the Fire Queefer in her last breaths. And as the dust settles, Bingus Chin is now the ultimate Lord of Cinder, and a new age shall dawn. With that being said, this marks the end of the story of Bingus Chin, the hash-slinging flasher. This was my first time doing a challenge in a Souls game, so I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. This video was not only fun to edit, but to record too, because I love playing Souls games. If you enjoyed the video too, I have no doubt you'll enjoy some of my other content on the channel, so don't forget to check it out. With that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe either. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.